very critical and important issue, and certainly two spokespersons with all of their arms wrapped around the world in peace. We should have a good time tonight. Our peacemakers' efforts began even before 9/11 here at Glide. But they became more exact and refined after 9/11. As I stated downstairs when several of us were meeting, that everything we do here at Glide is an effort toward peace. We distinctly want it to be known that we are peacemakers, like we are people who practice justice and unconditional love, and that we're people who feel very strongly that it is better to be on the edge working to bring about a new community throughout the world than to accept things just as they are. So we come because we're trying to make the world a better place for everybody. And we want it to be that way. In fact, we will put our lives on the line so it can be that way. We want peace now. Thank you for coming tonight. Glide has always attempted to bring to the people, its people and the people, some sense of how we might get a clearer picture of how we can participate and why we should participate in making those things that are wrong right, bringing righteousness into the community. And so, because we feel so strongly about our efforts, tonight we are strident and we are stepping and we are aware and we feel very strongly that the dialogue must continue, that our conversation must be emphatic, and that it must be finally human. And in being human, we become the people who hopefully will make things happen where all of us will benefit from them. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Things we're getting ready to do. We are purchasing some property across the street. And we've just torn down 3 buildings as of today, because if we get the entire block, we're going to build some 500 units of affordable housing. We're going to build a 500-space garage because if you want to make revenue, let me put it another way, if you're going to survive, you got to have some money coming in, and therefore a garage will help us have that. We're going to do a 6-story building for nonprofit groups to have office space and program space and whatever else. I'm so glad, because on that space as of next week, we will build a fence. And on that fence for the park, this is temporary parking space where you will be able to come, by the way, and park on Sundays in the very near future. I know some of you are proud about that. But we're going to build a fence there, and much of it will be a fence with boards, made out of boards. And what we're going to do is we're going to put on that fence, in the tenderloin, on the boards, a mural about peacemakers. And I understand that there are people, we have a lot of folks around here who are artistic and all that kind of stuff. But if there are those of you who are interested in helping with that mural, we invite you to sign up downstairs. We're going to have a reception after this. In other words, we're going to have a little food, you all, right after this. And you can sign up downstairs for that, to help us with that peacemaking mural. Glide is always trying to find its way and how it might respond and act out ways of being with people. We don't draw distinctions about this person or that person or this group or that group. What we try to do is love, not a little love. I don't like to have a little love. I want all the love I can get. So my brothers and my sisters, this is who we are. This is what we're trying to do. And we're so proud to have spokespersons tonight. I won't say anything about them because Janice Mirkatani is going to come up and introduce them. But right now, Janice Mirkatani, Executive Director at Glide Church and Glide Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Williams. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Welcome. Okay. There are several people we want to acknowledge before we hear from our speakers this evening. We want to thank the California Endowment and for their contribution to our Peacemakers program and the forums that we've been hosting every month, and also for this evening. The California Endowment, we thank you for your philanthropic, visionary efforts to bring about changes and to create a healthy, redefine healthy, what it means to be a healthy community, especially in the wake of September 11th. Thank you. Renita and Jacob for your contributions, and Renita especially for being part of our efforts here. Please stand up. Thank you, Renita. I also want to acknowledge Frank Dardon, who is the special assistant to Reverend Cecil Williams. He keeps us all together and keeps the information all together. Frank, won't you stand up so we can thank you? And I want you to meet Kristen Osby, who is the Associate Director of Global Ministries, and she is a woman who also keeps us all together, and she has been a phenomenal person in helping us be creative, and she is so smart, and she is so dedicated, and so committed, and so spiritual and loving. Kristen, would you like to say something?
Well, Cecil asked me to invite you to have cake afterwards, and then he invited you to have cake afterwards. So I'll just add, come eat with us afterwards. And we hope you'll sign up to get involved with the mural. We really want to get people of all generations and faith backgrounds and causes. We want to come out and tell our stories and try and find an image that brings us all together. So sign up downstairs and we'll call you about the first meeting, which will happen in the next couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. It is particularly meaningful for me to be able to introduce to you the speakers this evening. Cecil and I just had dinner with my cousin, Jimmy Mirikitani, whom we just discovered. He was homeless in New York, and he's from Hiroshima. And his family was killed during the war in the bombing of Hiroshima. So I feel that we have, we constantly get reminded of our connections and the reasons why we must continually dedicate ourselves to the cause of peace. This evening, I'm proud to introduce to you two speakers who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear and the love in their hearts to move our feet and our souls, spelled S-O-U-L-S, souls of the world, to commit our lives and to commit our dedicated activism for peace. Ibrahim Abu el-Hawa, a Palestinian Muslim, is widely known as the ambassador of goodwill from the Mount of Olives. For over 30 years, he has been involved in peace and reconciliation efforts between Arab and Jewish people in the Holy Land. Ibrahim. Eliyahu McLean is the director of Peacemaker Community Middle East. Peacemaker Community Middle East serves as an umbrella for many projects that integrate spirituality and reconciliation efforts. One of these is the weekly Old City Peace Vigil, which brings together Jews, Muslims, Christians, and visitors from around the world. Please give them a warm welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Shalom alaikum. We ask God to build the peace on all the earth and everyone to be happy in this earth. And if we are happy in our heart, everyone will be happy. And thank you everyone who's coming over, and thank who invite us to be here. We ask God to bless every one of you. My name is Ibrahim. I came from the holy city, from the land of the prophets, which we get too tired to hear a word, Israel and Palestine, because that land belongs to God and nothing we own it. We are in this earth for a short time. If we live a year or 100 or 200, we will must have to do something good in this earth. And that's especially what we learned to start with, as in that land, for both people, for anyone coming from anywhere in the world, there's plenty room for us. But the problem there, the world can understand about anything about how we live there. We have really as a beautiful life through my family life on the top of the Mount of Olives. As a family live around 1400 years, and we have a lot of history on that mountain. I opened my eyes on that home with my own family, and I find my father work at the Jewish cemetery, cutting the stones on the mountain, on Mount of Olives, and send all that stone to the graveyard and to the Jewish homes. And he started that job from 1988 and 19 till 1948. And all my family, they work with the Jew, with the Christian, with all the nation there. But the world the people in the world, they can't see that and don't understand how we live. Really, we have beautiful life, and there is enough life there for everyone if you can understand how those three religion people can live together. If anyone go there, and a lot of history and stories about the life between the Muslim and the Christian and the Jew there. As we have a long story about the Holy Sepulchre Church. When the Islam came into Jerusalem, into the city, there's a problem between the Christians themselves and them Holy Church at the Holy Sepulchre. When there's one of the group want to go to pray, they shut on the other and leave the other one and outside. When the Muslim came to the land, to Jerusalem, they took the key from the Christian because they fight in, and give it to one family. And from the time of Umar ibn Khattab, 1400 years, the Christian never have a key for their own church. The Muslim Nusayba family who opened the church and closed it, they carry the key till today. The world don't know what mean Islam and Muslim. Islam and Muslim is the holy name of God. In the Islam, in the Quran, written There's 90 names of God, and one of the names is salam, is peace and love, and to love one another there. And the 3 books written there, holy word, to say you have to love your neighbor as your brother. It's never written to you as a Jew, you have to love your neighbor if he's a Jew like you, or for the Christian to love a Christian, your neighbor if he's a Christian, or for the Muslim. You have to love him how he is, and who is, and which religion, and which language, and which color. And that's the way how we have to love one another. And that's the roots of the land. And from there start the problem. Because if you are my neighbor, and you don't care about me, and you don't look to my face, as what kind of neighbor you are? As a neighbor better than brother, because if something happened to me in my own home, my home catching fire, my brother who live in the other side of the town, he never can see me and carry bucket of water and throw on the fire. But my neighbor, he will jump and give me a hand. This is the brother who's your neighbor. And now to the people in the world, they can't see that. We live in a small country. And that small country, we need that love to love one another. There's so much love in that land between one another there. And here we are together. The love, we miss it, and they make it hard. The politics people, the leaders of the countries in the world. And I believe all the leaders in the world, if they want to build they are interested to build the peace tonight, will be peace tonight. The problem is the world, they want to build weapons and guns and airplanes. To whom they will sell it? We must be slave for them. To work on our land and give them all our energy and give it to them. And because they are not stupid, they built all that stuff. They are not going to throw it in the ocean. They will not give it to sea. Russia want to see what's her material more strong to give it to the Palestinian, or the American give it to the Jew. And that's the story between, they want to check about them weapons, who's more strong. And who gets killed? Us. None of the children of the leaders get killed. And here's the problem, not just in Palestine. They say we have the Golan Heights. Golan Heights, Belgium sold the Syrian, Lebanese, and Israel landmine. They put it in a mountain, and that land don't worth anything today. They say Golan Heights, thousands of acre of land not worth anything in that area. There is a fence. No bird, no cow, no person can go into that land because there is landmine. To clean that area today, they check, and bless her heart, in her graveyard, Queen Diana, she wanted to think about that stuff to do it in that areas to clean it. But the cost to clean it today is the cost 4 or 10 times more than the First and Second War. Who have that money to put it there? We are all suffering, both people suffering, Jew and Palestinian, because the women and all that material of killing one another shipping to us. If they stop shipping to us, we don't have any problem. And many maybe, and some an Arab here, I'm so happy to see them there. There is a holy word called in Arabic sulha, between two people, two families. I throw on him stone, he will throw on me stone. He will hit me, he don't kill me. But next day, someone come in the middle and fix it between us. And we have to give everyone a hug and drink a cup of coffee and kiss one another. And that's the life. And the richness what we have today, like I live in a village, I have 12,000. I know everyone by name, father name, mother name, which kind of job they have, and how they live inside their homes. I want to come to live in this country. And when first time I came here, I find I will miss that. I don't have family life. There are 2, 3 people in the same street, they don't know one another. How I can walk? I can say to you, good morning, good afternoon. Who are you? You don't know your neighbor. You just say to him when you pass in your car, but you never visit him home. You never visit his heart. And that's what stopped me to come to live in this country and be rich in my pocket, but I'm too rich in my heart. But that life and that country is so beautiful, so good. You hear a lot about the news. You hear a lot about the news in that country. It's so bad, killing all those Muslim or Jew or Christian killing one another in the churches, and synagogue, and the mosque. But none of you ever see something good happen between the Jewish and the Muslim and the Christian as the seeds of Adam and Eve and the seeds of Abraham. We are cousins, but we are not cousins. We are brothers. We are an Arab. I'm an Arab. And he's a Jew. But we need one another. That land belongs to us. It belongs to us as a Palestinian. As a Palestinian, I don't have another land. I'm Arabic. I speak Arabic language. There's 22 an Arab country. The 22 an Arab country is not my home. It's not my land. If I want to do the program, the best important thing in my holy life to go to Mecca, Saudi Arabian, I don't have the freedom to go to Saudi Arabian. I need visa. And more hard, difficult for me to go to Saudi Arabian and forbidden for me to go to Syria and Iraq. It's so more easy for me to come to the United States and Europe and Canada all over the world. More easy to come to Europe, to your country here. I'm blessed to be here many times, you know. But you have to know, we don't have another land. And for the Jew, as Israel. But the people don't understand that. That's the purpose which we reach one another to teach our children, for our generation, for love and peace, to live in peace. We must live together. How bad is it? About what you hear, but it's not more bad than the way what you live here. Sorry to say that. We hear in the news, kids, they left home, they don't show up. Divorce and all that. 12,000 in my home. We don't have any divorce. Any problem between the couple, must fix it. No way. Forbidden. And that family life. And for them, they don't have another land to live. We must find the way between the people. If your leader leave us alone and to let us live there. Those leaders in the world to stop selling weapons, come with love from the heart to believe in God. And anyone believe in God, he have a heart for loving and peace. We will have it tonight, not tomorrow. And I hope if they don't want it to, we're going to have it one day. As soon when God wants it, we're going to have it. And God only have the key to stop that problem there. We are all very tired. We are really very tired from the situation. We have last year, there is a group called Human Rights and Ta'ayush and Stand Shalom and Peacemaker to come to the West Bank when they have some problem. I walk and work with them when they came to plant over 10,000 olive trees in the West Bank for them cousins, for them brothers. Anyone read that? Anyone saw that? What those Jew and Christian from around the world to come to the West Bank as a holy man, Jew and Christian come to plant trees, walk in the mud and plant trees in the Muslim and the Christian land in Palestine, what they call today the West Bank. A lot of times when they have curfew, when they have strike, they broke everything. The Jew came with lorries with tons of food, hundreds of tons with semi-trailer. They get beaten, they kicked. To go to south of Hebron from Jerusalem, it takes 35, 40 minutes. They turn around the country to go to Beersheba and Dimona, Arad, and come to the south of Hebron. Take them 3-4 hours to bring food, to bless us. How we can leave those people alone without to walk with them at least in front of them, to show they carry blessing to us. They carry a lot of love because they have a lot of love for us. We are there, both of us there, if they like it or they don't like it. Story, everyone hear about Jenin. You never hear about some small good things happen. What those Jewish people doing for them cousin, for them brother there. You saw everything killing, destroyed, and that's all. But I live on the Mount of Olives. We have the huge Muslim and Arab hospital called Maqasid. And anything happened there, they call me. I'm a small guy, but they like to let me know about what happened there. I jump from home because they're going to carry some drink for those guys who's going to welcome them there. And when I go out, I find all those Jewish guys giving hand in the hospital to give blood to us, to Jenin, to Shechem, to the camps in Balata and Bethlehem and all. You never read about that. You never saw that. That's the problem. You always, with the business of the news and the press, about all the bad things, but about the good things, you never see it. You think, no way, what way? And let's say that who never comes there, you think there is a wall between the Jew and the Palestinian, and the Muslim and the Christian there, like in Berlin, East and West Berlin in Germany. We don't have that. We need one another. I have children. They work in settlement. They are in builder. They never stop one day from work. We need one another because there is no way. We have a hand. They have money. They have work. We can't be separate. We are there. And that why we are suffering there. Most of us suffering from you. Why? Because you listen to the news and you never come to reach the heart of the country to see how we live. Especially the city of the Prophet, the city of the holy city in the world called Jerusalem. Jerusalem, city of tourists. If there is no tourist, no life in that city. And if you don't come there, we don't have a living. We have big problem. Who been before in Jerusalem, the old city, a crowded, you can't breathe, you can't move. Today, the owner of the shops, the souvenir shops, sitting on the middle of the street, play domna, play card, because they don't have anything to do. And anyone will show up, they jump on him to sell him something, to find something to support them families. What hurt us, what killing us, what bother us, you listen to news and you don't come there. We need you all to be with us. We want to see everything in the ground, how we live there. And that, I welcome everyone to come to that land and to see her. It's not welcome to that land, welcome to my home. We are a family. Through all my life traveling the world, I'm thanking God for all that special gift what I have every day. Because everywhere I go, I know many people here been in my home. Some people been 30 years ago been in my home. As a Jew, one of the Jewish lady, she lived in my home 33 years ago. We don't have that problem what you hear about it. I want to see you there. Don't ask about it. Write me. I will send my children, if you are more than one, to send them with invitation to welcome you to the Mount of Olives. We'll be at the airport waiting for you. We want to see your faces there. And really that's our support. And you have to know we are family. From where we came and go, we still family. And we need your support, your love. And I'm waiting to see every one of you there. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
One thing that you should know about Ibrahim is that he really is the goodwill ambassador from the Mount of Olives. He comes from a group of Palestinians who are called the Falah. That means the men and women of the earth that are connected on the grassroots level. Ibrahim has welcomed me into his home like a member of his family. Whenever there's a suicide bomb attack in Jerusalem, do you know who's the first person to call to make sure that I'm okay? Because I live in West Jerusalem. It's Ibrahim. How could I ever possibly turn to hatred and anger towards my Muslim brothers, my Christian brothers in the Holy Land, when Ibrahim is there? Impossible. My name is Eliyahu McLean, and some of you might be wondering, how is it that a nice Jewish boy with a kippah, peyot, and tzitzit, traditional Jew, has a last name like McLean? Well, it just so happens to be that on my father's side of the family, I'm descended from a long line of Protestant pastors and missionaries, the McLeans. And two of my siblings are right here on the front here. Say hi to Sasha and Rachel. They live right here in San Francisco. My sister Rachel has worked many years with at-risk youth on the streets of San Francisco. You should meet. And on my mother's side, I'm descended from a long line of traditional Jews and even some rabbis from Eastern Europe. So in the 60s, they both ended up out here in the Summer of Love. In 67, they met while hitchhiking to a commune called Morning Star Ranch, not too far north of here. So we're products of that union. And both of them left their respective religions and adopted a guru from India. California, right? And then we moved out to Hawaii, and all during my childhood I grew up with the principles of Sant Mat, which was my parents' spiritual path, but I was always looking for a sense of connection to my identity, something to connect with. So growing up in Honolulu in Hawaii, all of my friends were Japanese. So I wanted to become Japanese. I went to Japanese school twice a week because all of my friends were Japanese, but soon I realized I'm not Japanese. And then I was 12 years old, and I went to this ritual in the one synagogue in Honolulu called Temple Emmanuel that I'd never heard of before, invited by the one other Jewish young person in my high school on the North Shore of Oahu. And that ritual was a bar mitzvah. And the moment I stepped into that synagogue, when I was 12 years old, I knew I had found my way home. I felt a sense of connection that something was far beyond than anything rational that I could ever explain. So within a year, I'd learned enough Hebrew and training to have a bar mitzvah. And when I was 13, I had a bar mitzvah, and my Jewish grandfather flew in from Queens, New York, and gave me the Hebrew name Eliyahu, which is Elijah in Hebrew, which I use to this very day. At that synagogue where I was bar mitzvahed, there was one Jewish youth group, a Zionist youth group, called Young Judea, which sent me to live in the Holy Land, first as a visitor when I was 15 years old, then again when I was 18 years old. So I went when I was 18, I lived on a kibbutz, I lived on a moshav, learned about Israeli history, and then I went to go study in a university not too far east of here, in a small country called the People's Republic of Berkeley. Some of you might have heard of it. And at Berkeley, I was very active in Israel-related causes and bringing speakers and lecturers. And finally, there was this class that I was supposed to go to sort of listen in on called Palestine. And for the first time, I heard the Palestinian side of the story that I had never heard of before. The history of 1948, the history of 1967 from a Palestinian perspective. The Nakba, the creation of and birth of the state of Israel, which was always a source of celebration for me. I learned about the other side, the other perspective, the Nakba. And so went back to the Holy Land at age 21 during the year of the Gulf War. There, I studied Arabic. I started to visit the UC Berkeley sister university in Bethlehem University. Started to meet students there at Bethlehem University, and they brought me to their homes in Dheisheh refugee camp. And so I started then, at that time, to bring students from the UC system to Bethlehem University and Dheisheh refugee camp. And that sort of began my bridge building and peacemaking work at that time. Ended up to study in yeshiva, in traditional Jewish yeshiva in the old city of Jerusalem. Went out to Egypt searching for truth, met the Sufis, the Muslim mystics, and embraced a practice of Sufism and studied Islam in Cairo. Upon return to the Holy Land, ended up living in a hippie Hasidic Moshav community called Moshav Modi'im, which was founded by the original followers of Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, who had the House of Love and Prayer here on Haight-Ashbury in the late 60s and early 70s. Not so far away. It's part of the legend. Well, let's leave it as that. Yes, there were several. There were 2 or 3 different houses. And so they embraced me into their community. And then I returned to the People's Republic, Berkeley, across the bay, and started to get very involved in bridge building efforts, was involved with a group called Jewish Voice for Peace. And I also have to add that I also graduated from Lowell High School here in San Francisco. Rootsman. Have roots here also. And so I lived for a while here in San Francisco and in Berkeley as well. So in 1997, I knew that my destiny was calling me back to the Holy Land to work as a bridge builder and as a peacemaker, even while I had gone to study in Chabad Yeshiva in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I was always coming back to that role to find a way to be bridge builder, but with a spiritual foundation, and the foundation of my own Jewish roots and in the process of interfaith dialogue. So in 1997, I went to go live in an Arab village in the Galilee called Tamra, in the western Galilee, near Akko. And I went to Tamra to bring together children from 5 Jewish and 5 Muslim community centers to work with what was a radical new concept, bringing youth to experience each other's cultures. It was called the Rav Tarbuti, multiculturalism. And of course this was the trendy thing. And I had just come from Berkeley, where multiculturalism is. And I get there the very first day, and everyone is asking me, Ahalin, inta ba'arif wahad ismahu Abu Eliyahu? Hello, do you know someone by the name of Abu Eliyahu? I said, no, never heard of the guy. And so I'm working with the kids. I was a counselor, a Orthodox Jewish counselor for 40 Muslim teenagers. Bringing them together with the Jewish kids and Druze and Christian Palestinian from other villages. And people kept asking me, Inter Ba'araf Wahad Ismu Abu Eliyahu. I said, they said, do you know someone named Abu Eliyahu? I said, no, I've never heard of the guy. And finally, after 3 months, they kept asking me, I said, I don't know the guy, I've never heard of him. Stop asking me, I have no idea who you're talking about. So towards the end of the time there, I'm at the entrance to the town at a vegetable stand there, and I get a tap on the shoulder from a man about Ibrahim's height, a farmer, and he says, Ahlan, ana ismi Abu Eliyahu. I said, Abu Eliyahu, you found me. Here you are. And so, how did he get the name Abu Eliyahu? Well, he had 5 daughters. And if you know, in traditional Arab culture, a man is named as father of his firstborn son. So he finally had a son named Al-Khadr. Al-Khadr, by the way, is also my Arabic name that my Palestinian friends call me. It means the green one, the mystical companion of the prophet Moses in the Quran. Al-Khadr also is the equivalent of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, in Islamic mystical and Sufi tradition. And so he named his son Al-Khadr, and all of his Jewish friends started to call him Abu Eliyahu, which is the equivalent of Abu al-Khadr. And then his Muslim friends started to call him Abu Eliyahu, and the name stuck. So he brought me to meet everyone at the entrance to the town and in the farm lands where he worked. And he said, Hada Eliyahu wa ana Abu Eliyahu wa huwa ibni. This is Eliyahu, and I am the father of Eliyahu, therefore he is my son. So I became known as Eliyahu ibn Abu Eliyahu, Eliyahu the son of the father of Eliyahu. And so he said, I don't care. He welcomed me into his home. He says, I don't care if you're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. What matters to me is if you have a pure heart. What matters to me is if you have a pure heart. Shortly thereafter, I ended up at yeshiva, back in Jerusalem, to study in traditional Jewish yeshiva on Mount Zion, where King David's tomb is. But I had a hard time sitting and learning Talmud 8 hours a day. So I would leave the traditional yeshiva and take part in dialogue projects in the city of Nablus that took place in the Reiki Center and Women's Center of Nablus, in the Palestinian Reiki Center. It was the Palestinian equivalent of Glide Memorial. In the heart of Nablus. And there I met Samaritans. You've heard of the Good Samaritans? Hung out with the Samaritans above Nablus and was welcomed into their home. And we were using a dialogue model called transformation of suffering. And the idea was to bring Israelis and Palestinians together in dialogue to help heal the wounds of the pain from the conflict that we've both experienced. And we broke off into small groups, one Israeli and one Palestinian. The Israeli would tell their story, and the Palestinian would tell their story about something painful related to the conflict in the Middle East. Then we would come into bigger groups, and the Israeli would tell the Palestinian story, and the Palestinian would tell the Israeli story. Very powerful. An example of this type of dialogue was when we were in the old city of Nablus called the Kasbah, which is as old as the old city of Jerusalem. Nablus, Shechem in Hebrew. And we were in the old city, and we got to an owner of an old soap factory, and the leader of the Israeli delegation looked at the Palestinian owner of the soap factory. We knew something was up. There was a smirk in their eye. There was something mischievous going on. So we got there, and the Israeli leader of the Israeli delegation lifted up his shirt in the middle of a Palestinian market with 30 Israelis and hundreds of Palestinians watching. He lifted up his shirt and he pointed to his stomach, and there were scars down his stomach. He had been a survivor of a shooting attack, a terror attack in Ben Yehuda Mall in Jerusalem. Then the Palestinian lifts up his shirt and pointed to his stomach, scars. And he had been a survivor of random shooting by Israeli soldiers during the first Intifada. The two of them pointed to each other's scars, laughed, and then in the middle of the market gave each other a big hug. Can you imagine the power of transformation? Both of them had every reason to hate, every reason to be filled with anger and desire for revenge. And yet, the yearning for transformation of the pain helped them to push through. All of that time, I was looking for the Muslim mystics called the Sufis. And many Palestinians had told me, if you want to find the Sufis, go to Egypt and go to Turkey. Fishhon. They aren't here. Fish Wahadhon. And so I'm spending Shabbat at the hippie Hasidic community, Moshav Modi'im, with a man named Mikhail Golem. He has a long red beard, He's a passionate religious Zionist, and he's from Alabama. And he speaks like a preacher from Alabama. And he says, "Hey, brother, have I got a Sufi for you?" And he takes me in his car, and he drives me up to this West Bank village. And the sheikh comes out with long, white, flowing robes. In Der Qadis, near Ramallah, Harbata. And he gives me a big hug and 10 kisses on the cheeks. And his son Yaqub walks out and gives me 10 kisses on the lips. And they invited me into their house, and for 3 days I slept there, I ate there, we sang, we danced. It was such a meeting of the heart. It was like, all of a sudden it was like, I could let my guard down. I had met Abu Eliyahu, but here was closer to Jerusalem, a Palestinian Muslim sheikh. And I said, well, after 3 days, aren't you a little worried what the neighbors might think? After all, I might look like a settler, dressed like I am. He says, you know, you're right. Make sure when you leave to put on a baseball cap, put your peyote back into a ponytail, tie them back, because the truth is not all of our neighbors understand the true meaning of the Quran. Not all of our neighbors understand the true meaning of the Quran. And soon I was bringing many delegations of Israelis to come visit with him. How is it that he came to meet Mikhail? Mikhail was working in a cement factory, and everybody in the cement factory was asked, are you willing to deliver this payload of cement to a West Bank village, to a Palestinian village? And he said, and everybody in the company says, if we go, we'll never make it out alive. Fear. There was so much fear. But he said, I'll go. We need to make peace with our cousins, the Ishmaelites. Passionate, right-wing, religious Zionist. But the language of the heart can break through every single barrier. The language of the heart. To speak from the heart, to listen from the heart. This is what Ibrahim and I are talking about. Heart-based diplomacy. I ended up becoming the Sheikh's booking agent and bringing him all around Israel to speak at hippie music festivals, to meet the channel teachers, the angelologists. There was a journalist named Yossi Klein Halevi who was writing a book about his personal encounters with the mystics of the Holy Land. So he had met all the Christian mystics, the Beatitudes, the monks, the Benedictines. But he says, I've met all the Christian mystics, but I have not met the Muslims. He says, Eliyahu, I have a car and you have the Sufis. Let's go on a tour. So not only did I introduce him to this particular sheikh, that sheikh opened up a door to a whole network of mystics in the Muslim tradition throughout the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and the Galilee. And our adventures now make up a good part of this book, which you can order at any major bookstore. It's called At the Entrance to the Garden of Eden, A Jew's Search for Hope with Christians and Muslims in the Holy Land, Yossi Klein Halevi, HarperCollins Publishers. And at the same time that I came to know this sheikh, and then through him a whole network of sheikhs, including going into Nusayrat refugee camp in Gaza on missions of peace, I met a radical rabbi that for many here, he may possibly define every definition of what an enemy of peace in the Middle East is. Not only is he a settler, not only does he live in Tekoa, which is a West Bank settlement, he's one of the founders of the Gush Emunim religious Zionist settler movement. Now you've got the image? Well, this man is one of the most unlikely peacemakers in the Middle East. He's been meeting with radical Muslim sheikhs for 15 years. When Sheikh Ahmed Yassin of Hamas was in prison in Israel, Rabbi Fruman was regularly visiting him. And they were talking about how to bring spiritually based solutions to the Holy Land that the politicians don't seem to be able to solve. To work on concepts that found in Islam, in Islamic law, in Sharia, in halakha, in Jewish law, in Christian tradition. When Ahmed Yassin was freed and sent back to Gaza, they threw a hero's welcome for Rabbi Fruman in Gaza. Can you believe that? Not everything is so black and white, is what I'm trying to say. Till this day, I have a very close relationship with him. And I go often to his house, and Ibrahim has been to his house. He has a close working relationship with Sheikh Talal Sidr, who's a former Hamas sheikh and now representing a member of Yasser Arafat's inner cabinet responsible for interreligious affairs. His heart was opened by the love of this rabbi. This rabbi is not insisting on Israeli sovereignty over Palestinian areas, but that the Jews have a connection to the land that even transcends who is sovereign over it. Maybe there can be solutions found that Jews and Muslims and Christians could live everywhere in the land. That doesn't exclude anybody, but doesn't also insist that I, as an Israeli, be sovereign over every square inch of the land. As an example of this type of concept is when I helped organize a year ago March a Rabbi Sheikh Summit in Eilat. And there we had imams and chief rabbis from cities all over Israel, all over the Holy Land. And for 3 days we sat and we learned texts to get. And I also want to add that the wives of the sheikhs and the rabbis were there, and also in intimate dialogue, and also arguing with the rabbis and the imams to get the men's perspective to chill out a bit sometimes. And after 3 days, do you know what the sheikh, the imam, the chief rabbi of the city of Eilat said? He said, in my hometown of Halab, Aleppo, Syria, when the Jews, Muslims, and Christians had a dispute, do you know where they solved their dispute? In the Jewish court of law, the Beit Din. And that all of the Muslims and Arabs, Christians in the town of Aleppo, knew Jewish law by heart. And then Sheikh Abdul Aziz Bukhari, close personal friend of mine, I organized many prayer gatherings in his home in the Muslim quarter of the old city next to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jews, Muslims, Christians, we regularly come together for prayer, for zikr, in his home. He is a true peacemaker. His family has been 600 years in the old city of Jerusalem. They know the Abu al-Hawa family quite well for many generations. Aywa? And he said, that's no big deal. My grandfather studied at Al-Azhar University in Cairo, the biggest Islamic university in the world. And there he studied Talmud, and he knew the Talmud by heart. Then the chief rabbi of a city called Ramat Gan, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Ramat Gan, Rav Yitzhak Bardea, says, that's no big deal. My grandfather was the chief rabbi of Libya. They used to call him Sheikh al-Yahud, the Jewish sheikh. And do you know what? He knew the Quran by heart. Can you imagine just 2 generations ago how much of a level of intimacy and meeting on the spiritual and mystical level there was? How far have we gotten? And here, the wives and the rabbis and the sheikhs and the imams and the spiritual leaders, after 3 days, felt such a camaraderie, such a brotherhood and sisterhood. like we're one. And yet, how do we bring that message back to our mosques, back to our synagogues? Because there's so much anger and rage. It's like the spirit of rage has taken over. Rabbi Froman, when he meets with the radical Muslim sheikhs, he says, you know who the real enemy is? It's not Arafat, it's not Sharon, it's the shaitan. In Hebrew we call it the sitra achra. It's the negative power that is dividing the children of Abraham and not helping us to see that we can live together in peace. It's maybe influencing the Arab world to not see how we as Jews don't see ourselves coming to the Middle East as colonialists, as occupiers, as displacers, but as coming home. It may influence us to see that we have forgotten, as Israelis, that we're part of the Middle East, and that a key concept in the Middle East is honor, respect, and dignity. And we must have respect and dignity for our neighbors if we're to be accepted and welcome in that part of the world. When we're with the spiritual, I can hang out with Hamas supporters and even my religious Jewish settler friends. And I say to my religious friends, Palestinian national movement. Blood pressure starts to rise. And I say to my Palestinian friends in Bethlehem, because I was there for Christmas, the Orthodox Christmas Bethlehem. And my Palestinian friends, and all I have to do is say, Zionist national movement. Blood pressure starts to rise, tension in the air. But when I say, Nahna walad Abuna Ibrahim fi ard il-salam, we are all children of the Abraham in one land, the land of peace. All of a sudden, it's like bringing in the spiritual definitions of the land that all of our traditions share, all of a sudden levels the playing ground where someone even from the so-called extremists and militant we can bring into the dialogue. We must include the hopes and the fears and not just make a peace between the academic Israelis and the academic Palestinians, but to include the hopes and fears of the falah, of the simple Sephardic Jew on the street, the Ethiopians, the religious Israelis, the spiritual. Bring in that spiritual element. Can you imagine at the Oslo Accords what a difference it would have made to have the top imams, sheikhs, rabbis, and maybe representatives from the other spiritual traditions there? That's one of the problems that I hear over and over again from the spiritual leaders there, is that the political process has said the religious people are the source of the problem, and we're going to make peace on economic and rational grounds. And it don't work in the Middle East. And we can see the results. We can see the results. Can you imagine about the issue of the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, which is holy to Jews and Muslims? If we try to put exclusive Palestinian sovereignty, many of the traditional Jews will get upset. If we have exclusive Israeli sovereignty, many of the Palestinian Muslims and Christians would get upset. But what about the concept of sovereignty of God, sovereignty of Allah? These are the type of solutions that behind the scenes, at this very minute, working committees of spiritual leaders are working day and night to try to prepare the ground for the reconciliation between our peoples on these type of principles. When the Intifada started 22 months ago, I was walking on Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem, and I saw Ibrahim. And I knew Ibrahim from many events before, but Ibrahim was so broken. He burst out in tears, and he grabbed me, and we cried together. From that moment forward, there was an unspoken bond and commitment that we are going to work together, no matter how long and hard it takes to help bring healing between and reconciliation between our peoples. So a group of us decided to follow in the footsteps of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi, and maybe the example of Glide Memorial. And we decided to hold a fast and prayer vigil in the old city of Jerusalem to protest with our bodies the killing that my people was doing to the Palestinians and the Palestinians were doing to my people. And so we went to the old city, to a small tourist overlook, overlooking the Western Wall. In front of us, Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, and the Kotel, the Western Wall. Behind us, not so far away, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And we sat and formed a circle, and we sat in silence, and we prayed. And we came there with three tenets. I'm part of a group also called the Peacemaker Community, so I think we're already one community. And the Peacemaker Community, the first tenet, the Peacemaker Community was founded by a Jewish Zen Roshi named Bernie Glassman, and he asked me to be director of the Middle East, Israel and Palestine and Middle East branch of that. And the first tenet that we work with is called not knowing. Giving up fixed ideas about ourselves in the universe. One of the problems in the Middle East, and maybe you could tell me if this is a challenge in San Francisco, is that everybody knows. We all know to such an extent that we're not willing to listen to anybody with another viewpoint, another perspective. And over there, it's especially so. And it's not just between Israelis and Palestinians. Just within Palestinian, Muslim, Arab society, you have those divisions. Within Israeli society, it's Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Chiloni, Dati, secular religious, left-wing, right-wing. People always ask me, are you left-wing or are you right-wing? And I say it takes two wings to fly. And so we know what Rabbi Hartman calls it. He says the problem in Israel, and he meant by extension that whole area, is that we have a tyranny of certitudes. A tyranny of certitudes. And then we come with the second principle, the second tenet, which we call bearing witness. Sometimes we don't have all the answers and all the solutions to how to solve everything. So we go into a place like that just to sit together, just to pray together, in and of itself can be a powerful thing. And the third tenet, based on the following those first two, is loving action. Not to be passive, but to actually do action in the field. Programs, projects, which we are doing in the Peacemaker community in Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And so we sat there for 3 days, and you know what? One by one, many Palestinians, Christians and Muslims from the old city came to sit with us and share their hopes and fears and concerns. Ibrahim came and helped secure the circle. Many Israeli soldiers passed by, and you know what one of them said? He said, Alavai, it should only be that your prayers for peace should succeed. I want more than anybody for your prayers to succeed. Do you think I want to be in this uniform? Do you think I'm happy to have to be in this role? I don't want to be in this uniform. I'd rather be home with my family. Many religious Jews also came and sat with us. And that Friday was called to be a day of rage. And we knew that there was going to be protests and rioting. And clashes after the Salat al-Jum'ah prayers and Al-Aqsa Mosque. Sure enough, we looked at our watch. At 12:20 exactly, we heard roar, a huge roar of thousands of Muslim worshippers clashing with Israeli security forces. the plaza where we were standing, filled with onlookers, pushing and rushing forward to see, because we had a vantage point, to see what was happening. In the meantime, our friend Devorah Browse from Bustan L'Shalom, one of our partner organizations, said, hold the space, hold the circle. And we rushed forward. And the policewoman sergeant came and ordered all of the police to clear out the square. Everybody get out of here now. Everyone has to leave, but they can stay, pointing to us. Everyone has to leave, but they can stay. We were holding a circle, chanting, Shalom, Salam. That one-time peace vigil, as the violence continued, turned into a weekly peace vigil. And we've been there every single week in that exact same spot, 11:30 to 1:30, every single Friday, with Jews, Christians, Muslims, and people from all over the world joining us. Many Palestinian Muslims leaving Al-Aqsa Mosque come and learn. We have the Quran, the Torah, the Bible, side by side, learning from the scriptures, sitting in silence together. Many religious Jews coming and join our circle. Christian pilgrims, even Tibetan Buddhist lamas from Tibet showing up and leading meditations there. How many of you know of the concept of sulha? Sulha? Ibrahim mentioned sulha. Sulha is a traditional Middle Eastern form of conflict resolution. When there's two clans fighting with each other, often they have to invite a third party to help mediate a dispute. And it's all centered around one key aspect of Middle Eastern culture. It's called the cup of coffee. Aywa? The cup of coffee. Malum. So, in the sulha also has in its name, and related to the Hebrew word slicha, forgiveness. It's a ritual of forgiveness. So, a member of the offending clan, there may be a blood feud running for 8 generations. There may be a blood feud running for 8 generations. And the Muhtar invites a member of the offending clan over, the other clan over for a cup of coffee. A first cup of coffee is offered and accepted. A second cup of coffee is offered and accepted. But the host offers a third cup of coffee. And the person receiving the cup of coffee from the group that has been wounded sometime in the past is not obligated to accept the third cup of coffee. But if they accept that third cup of coffee, that means I'm willing to make a sulha, a healing, a reconciliation. At the end of the ritual, it concludes with a handshake. There has to be a physical embrace. If I say I want to make peace, but I'm not willing to touch you, have I made peace? There has to be an embrace. At the end of the compensation rituals, the first clan throws a huge hafla, celebration, and the two clans celebrate the reconciliation together. So what we are trying to do is bring this ritual of sulha into Israeli-Palestinian sulha, to sulha for healing of Abraham's family. Last Hanukkah, we brought this principle when we brought together 150 Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and Druze, and one Native American. We had 150 people in a talking circle in the Galilee. We passed around an olive branch as a talking piece. And everyone spoke from the heart. And at the end of the evening, the Jews prepared the Ramadan feast of Laylatul Qadr. And the Druze, Christian, and Muslim Arab Palestinians each lit the Hanukkah candles. In a nutshell, what we're trying to do is to tap into traditional tools for healing and reconciliation that are often overlooked by Western negotiating techniques. To tap into what we call indigenous Middle Eastern peace wisdom. This is my final sentence. Salam is one of the 99 names of Allah. Islam comes from the word peace. Shalom also means shalem, which is whole, healing the brokenness of the whole. Jerusalem is Al-Quds, the holy. We need to return it to its sense of sacredness for all of human life, every human life. Yerushalayim in Hebrew means the city of peace or the legacy of peace. So we want you to work and come to Jerusalem and join us to help return Jerusalem to its true purpose, to be not just capital of Israel or capital of Palestine, but to be shared peace capital of the world. Thank you very much.
It's not Eliyahu. In essence, what you're demonstrating to us tonight is that both people, Palestinians, Arabs, and Jews, we have more in our tradition what unites us rather than what divides us. And we are, if we could only dwell on the good thing of what divides the two communities, there will be peace tomorrow. I appreciate very much that embrace. With that embrace, blood is forgiven. Animosity is forgiven. If we could only practice that, if we could only have the West to understand that. I'm proud to be an American Palestinian, and I have here to say that I do criticize America for not helping our people, the Israelis and the Palestinians, to live together in peace by not siding equally, by being the King Solomon of the West to intervene and help us, help the Palestinians and the Israelis to live in peace and harmony by being even-handed in treating the two people and to do away with the occupation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shukran.
I applaud all efforts to try and understand the other side's perceptions of the conflict. That is always useful. But I think we've also got to see the context in which this dialogue goes on. And the context is a story of oppression. It is an issue of human rights. And at the moment, it's one of the worst sort of abuses of human rights that we can see around us. I think one of the sort of dangers of interpreting the conflict in a religious sense is it somewhat ignores history. As you referred, Eliyahu, the Jewish communities of the Middle East, the Sephardim, lived happily over the centuries, whether it was Muslim Spain, Tunisia, Palestine. You mentioned the Samaritans, genetically the purest of Jews, who have nothing to do with Israel now. Jews in Syria. The problem was Israel has enshrined in a racist political structure this oppression. And I'd also like to point out that when the Jews came to Palestine. I mean, we understand what was going on in Europe at the time, the awful slaughter they'd suffered there. But unfortunately, you know, they transferred the suffering that had been inflicted on them onto another people that were living in that land. And that's often forgotten.
Can I respond to that? One of the projects that the Peacemaker community organizes and is involved in is a project called Sheikhs and Rabbis for Social Justice. Orthodox Jewish rabbis and Muslim sheikhs working together to bring the concept of justice to both of our communities. And there's an imam of a city called Tel Sheva, next to Beersheba. And he said to me, you know, Eliyahu, I want to go with you to Auschwitz, to Poland, to see what happened there, to see how is it that my people are suffering because of the suffering that the Jewish people experienced in Europe. And he came with me on the annual Peacemaker Community Bearing Witness retreat in Auschwitz, where for a week Poles, Germans, Holocaust survivors, Buddhists, Hindus, and many faith communities came together. Here's someone who has also been at the retreat in Auschwitz. And we walked together all over Birkenau and the death camps. And he broke down in tears many times. And he said, after a whole day, he said, you know what, Eliyahu, what is happening in the Holy Land now between our two peoples is continuing the legacy of Auschwitz. He wasn't just blaming Israel or the Palestinians or a particular leader, but it's the unhealed wounds of both peoples that are playing against each other. Israel is not the only one to blame. We both have a lot to part of it. Maybe Israel has more power, more weapons. But I lost a close friend, Alon Goldenberg, beautiful dreadlocked brother, working for peace, working with children, to a suicide bomb attack 3 months ago. Many of my Palestinian friends in Gaza and in Nablus and throughout the West Bank are suffering immeasurably. We are both suffering. And we have to not just try, just to say that the blame is to one side, but to work for the deeper level of healing and transformation. I am working within my own society, Israel, towards that end. But it's about to heal and to transform the deep level of woundedness that our two peoples project and play onto each other, and that feeds this conflict and keeps it going.
You see, the world don't understand much about the life there. Really, I don't feel any problem between the two people as the brother there. The problem is most of it about the law. As I'm from family lived there 1400 years, I'm not citizen of anywhere in the world. And most of my problem, or any Palestinian who were born there, we are not citizen. Like when God opened the door for my own children to leave that land, to come to United States to study, they are welcome here, they came and study. But after 3 years, I found out my own children who lived there 18 years, they are not allowed to come back again. And I have a lot of pain. Why? I have small family with 8 children. I promise all my children, anyone will be smart, I will send them to the moon. When I found out my own children is not allowed to come back again, my own children told me, you love the oldest more than us. I told them, you have to go to school. They told, we don't want to study if we don't want to go to United States. And I have problem with my own children just because, not the brother there at home, the law of the land. We lived there 1400 years. And there is a story about my grandfather in the National Geographic. There is some papers here. It say he died when he's 140 years old. Written about his life in the National Geographic. But it's bothering me. We don't need citizenship. We don't need freedom and rights like other. But we need something to treat us as let our children come back. We don't want them to feed us honey and cake. But we want to live. We want to, like anyone coming from Russia or anywhere in the world, his great-grandmother is Jew, he's welcome to the land. The Jews don't know about it. They are upset against the government because no one knows. Till when they share one with another, oh God, it's very painful. They don't like it. But the law, it's most of the problem in that land is the law. We are really brother there, especially Jerusalem. There's Jerusalem city. They say in the word, we can make it separate. How you can make it separate? You've never been there. I want Bush to come to the old city of Jerusalem, walk without security and see, to go to 3 floors. 1 floor have Christian, 1 floor have Jew, 1 floor have Muslim. He thinks he's going to build for us a tunnel or a pipe like a rabbit to go through, and this tunnel for the Christian, this tunnel for the Jew. We have tiny small road, smaller than this. We have to hit one another. We have to say one to another, sorry, forgive me. And next day we have to say to him, good morning. We are there. No one can make it separate. They are not going to build walls and fence. And that's what we want, everyone to come there and to share with us from his own heart. We need your love, your support, and to come there. I work with the child, I work with the children, I work with the Bedouin children. And some of them been in my home and work with me to go. In this area they have the grass and the water and the games, and the other area there is stone, no water, electricity. We are the year 2002. They don't know what's been computer. I came here, all the time I cry. When I saw small kids, 5, 6 years old, 4 years old, they swim in the swimming pool. We don't know how to swim. We don't have water to drink. We don't have much. We don't need much. We are too rich. But we need some freedom. We need some right. And your visit to us can share with the world about our need. And that you reach the heart of the country, you reach us. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
My name is Bryn Osby. I was a Marine in Vietnam, and I want to affirm the comments concerning sharing experiences of suffering. About 15 years ago, I went to the VA hospital in Menlo Park, which had a ward of veterans, American soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen who had fought in Vietnam and who were suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And we went around the circle, and we had with us as our guest a young Russian soldier who had 6 months earlier left Afghanistan. And he showed slides of his unit. It was a mine-clearing unit in Afghanistan, and he would show, this is my friend Dmitri. A week later, he was killed. This is my friend Ivan. 2 weeks later, he was killed. And these people went through a healing experience of realizing that this Russian soldier, who to them was the enemy, was in fact their brother. And there was this experience of the brotherhood of being soldiers and of being human beings. And one by one, these men went back to their rooms and brought out their greatest treasure, silver stars, purple hearts, medals, and they pinned these on this Russian soldier. And everyone in the room was crying. So I think the more, not only between the Israelis and the Palestinians, but within the divisions of the American people, if we can have experiences of sharing each other's suffering, we don't need to worry about who's right or who's wrong. Mm-hmm. We can see the underlying brotherhood and sisterhood that is the ultimate reality.
We're going to take one other person, and then we're going to go downstairs and share downstairs, all right? And I see your hand here, sir. Come right on.
I'm Stan Cueto, pastor of Geneva Avenue United Methodist Church. I would like to thank you for bringing the concept of the third party as a way of solving problems, because it is being done in my country, and I saw it effectively when corruption did not came into the scene. Now, I was with my father every now and then, being the head of the community, and he was always sought as the third party. But after he was gone, a political leader that came in introduced the political and economic corruption within the system. And I think this is a problem that we face today, because those who are acting as third party had their political and economic agenda rather than solving the problem that is going on. And as long as economic and political agenda is present in solving the problem, I think it will never be solved.
I see that our pastor, Douglas Fitch, has joined us. Thank you, Douglas. And thank you for joining us. It's so important for us to come together to at least talk it out with each other. We don't have to agree, but we do have to share. We do have to talk it out. We do have to be with each other in ways that help all of us to grow and to also love unceasingly. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go downstairs now, and there's something that, I don't know, it's something down there. Cake, ice cream maybe, I don't know. Whatever it is, go down there and eat it, all right? Let us again thank our guests for being here.